Hello, everybody, and welcome to the latest episode of House of League. We're back once again. I'm James Smales, back with my usual, I was going to say, how best to describe you? Partners in crime. Let's go with that, because you've both committed a few journalistic crimes in your time. Matt Shaw, our Rugby League editor, is with us, and Josh McAllister. How are you both doing?
All right.
Good.
Yeah, not bad.
Eastered well?
I had a long weekend of doing nothing. So my contributions are going to be minimal this week. I haven't spoken to anyone for 3 days.
So you're taking the Josh role
I
this week?
was going to say, thanks for having me back. Obviously, you couldn't find anyone else this week. So
You're going to have to come up with everything. You've probably seen more games than me. I haven't done anything since Good Friday Derby.
Everybody else is in a chocolate coma somewhere.
I only got one Easter egg, you know.
I didn't get any. Do you know why? Because I'm a grown-up. Moving on swiftly.
I got plenty.
I knew
and that reinforces my point completely. Good Easter though. There's some good games, and season seems to be ticking along again nicely, doesn't it?
There's plenty to talk about off the back of the games that we've had.
Yeah.
A lot of interesting talking points. I mean, where do you want to start? You can go anywhere.
I'd tell you where I'd quite like to start, because it's maybe unfashionable to some, and we haven't given a lot of credit. I'd like to start with the Leopards this week. Josh, by the time people see this, your feature will have come out. You're putting a piece together about the Leopards going under the radar a little bit for our all-out Rugby League site. And they are going under the radar. They're sitting third in the Super League ladder at the minute. Still in with a chance of claiming the Challenge Cup final again, with that semi-final coming up, which still fancy the chances of winning. But they're not the club that everybody's talking about. It's been Hull Kingston Rovers at the top of the table. It's been what a turnaround at Hull FC this season with John Cartwright. It's been Wigan. I've been a little bit patchy, but then coming good, and even St Helens. But Lee are there in third, playing some really good rugby with a player like Armstrong, who's a superstar that's not killing it at the minute, which only bodes well. I feel like I've just talked through your piece.
You don't really need to
people don't need to read it now. But I will come to you. You've been really impressed with them so far.
Yeah, as you mentioned, third in the Super League table. I think they've only lost twice all year. Obviously, the draw as well to Hull. They've been going really well, and as you say, quietly under the radar. We've been talking exactly as you said about KR. We've been talking about Wigan, talking about St Helens and Warrington and the issues that they've got to deal with. But Lee have been, under the radar, performing well, picking up wins. Obviously, they beat Casford last week. That wasn't, we weren't super impressed by it, but they did a job. They beat Warrington, who they will meet in the Challenge Cup semi-finals, 80 minutes away from a return to Wembley, having won in 2023. I think the first time they picked up the title since the 70s. I think obviously the dramatic golden point victory over Hull KR then. They're just doing really well, and I've been impressed by the recruits. Isaac Liu at 13, I think he's among the best loose forwards in the game at the minute. Tessie New, who's just picked up a pec injury, but he's been going really well in the centres. Ethan O'Neill, a player no one's heard of before. I was actually surprised to find out Sam Burgess coached him in the Rabbitohs. So I don't know if he was ever on his radar. He's been going really well. He should have been, because he's been going really well in the back row. So is Frankie Holton, Ireland international. Did a job for KR, did a good job for Hull KR, and he's doing a great job for Lee since he's been back. Yeah, there's just a lot of talent there, and they've been going really well. I've been really impressed by Lee.
Matt, what have you made of Lee?
They're just a good, let's be honest, it's a good club, isn't it? On field, since they've come back, they've won a Challenge Cup, they've made the playoffs twice, made the semi-finals. They've recruited excellently over the years. They put on a show. They do everything we want. Look at their attendances now. What was it? There was over 9,000?
Yeah. The attendances have been growing nicely, yeah.
I think it's safe to say now that Lee are one of the top clubs in Super League. And when I say top clubs, I mean across the board. I don't just mean on the field. They've consistently been good for a few years now. But everything they do off the field, the attendances they're getting have, climbed drastically. They bring good players to the competition. I have nothing but praise for Lee. I think the recruitment model's bang on. I think entertainment-wise, they're nailing it. It's great. They're a great club. We talk about the remarkable turnaround of Hull FC, which it has been in a short period of time. I remember Lee, when I first started working in it, we're a bit of a basket case club, to be honest, back in 2015, 2016. Probably more recently than that, to be honest. You look at where they are now, and absolutely, there's all this talk about 10-team Super Leagues and who get kicked out. And well, there's no way I'd get rid of Lee if you were doing it on that based on what we've seen the last couple of years. No way.
And for anyone that's been to home games, they dub them every week as the greatest show because there's bands on, there's all sorts. They're making it an event. They're doing really well, Lee. And he mentioned on the Armstrong, he was a favourite for Man of Steel. He had a good game in the opener. He's gone a bit quiet in recent weeks, had a few injuries. So when he starts firing, Lee are going to get even better.
Well, you'd imagine, and we are getting to that stage of the season when you get a drier track and the perms, I can't even speak, the pitch is firm up and the perms come out as well. The perms firm up. No, the pitch is firm up. You would imagine we're going to see a really explosive David Armstrong. That's going to suit him, and the sun comes out a little bit. Just flipping it a little bit to Warrington, because we talked about them facing Warrington in the Cup semi-final. I wanted to come to Warrington anyway at some point. Let's do it now, because you talk about that O'Neill should have been on Sam Burgess's radar, wasn't. Is it right that there should maybe have a few concerns a little bit about Warrington at the minute? And correct me if I'm wrong or if I'm misreading the situation, but missing out on some players, the likes of your Tom and Mon that are going to Castleford now when they really need him, and Lee's, and then but Tom and Mon for next season as well. You talk about Lee snapping up a player that would, really benefit that Warrington side at the minute. The form's been patchy. They're still in a cup semi-final. I know that. But are they 9th now in Super League?
Yeah.
On the back of this latest defeat at the weekend? It just feels like something's not clicking. It's not right, both in the recruitment and the playing side. How are you seeing it at the minute, Matt?
He's going to bring up the fact that he predicted them 7th once again.
I'm trying not to say I told you so, because
it's
a long season. There's time for it to turn, but all the concerns I had about Warrington at the start of the season have played out. The pack isn't good enough. We're a broken record on this, and the recruitment hasn't been good enough, and I'm comfortable enough saying that already, to be honest. And the telling fact is this. So they've not had Leon Hayes all year. That's been a blow, no doubt. They've never really settled on a halfback partner for George Williams until Mark Sneed comes in. Then George Williams is out. It tells you everything you need to know that Danny Walker, who is arguably within the top, well, some would argue he's the best hooker in the comp. He's certainly within the top 3 or 4.
I think he was last year's dream team, wasn't he?
Yeah. He ends up playing in the halves with Mark Sneed, while Ollie Leyland's at Widnes, I think he played this week.
Yeah, played fullback on dual registration.
You've got Stefan Ratchford not picked either. They re-signed Ratchford on a 1 year. They signed Ollie Leyland from London, and he's not picking either of them, and instead put in a square peg in a round hole with Danny Walker, which actually then hurts them at hooker where he's
It didn't work. It didn't work at the weekend, did
and it tells you everything. For me, that is, whichever way you try and dress that up and pitch it, it says that your recruitment and retention hasn't been right in that regard. Throw in the Dan Russell one, who was mediocre. He's been playing reserve grade for a couple of weeks. He hasn't been getting in the team. He was Matty Nicholson's replacement. They just haven't got the recruitment right. They haven't got the recruitment right, and we're now in a position where, as you rightly point out, missed out on Matty Lees, missed out on Tom Amone. They need at least one more middle. They've got Liam Byrne coming in, which is a good signing.
Yeah.
I'm worried for him. I think they'll have to be patient on the recruitment front, unless, and there is just a little whisper at the minute that they might be keen on Liam Knight, who's at Hull.
Yes.
He's on that short-term deal. You can see why they'd want him. But they might, if that
he's been impressive since coming in.
He's been good. And Hull FC have a bit of
size to him.
They've got a bit of a quota issue in terms of trying to keep him. So you could understand why, if they decide to pursue that further, they would do. Vaughan's off contracts as well. And you throw all these things into the mix, and you're just looking moving forward, and you go, recruitment-wise, they're going to have to get this one right, but they might have to hold the nerve a little bit to get the players they want now.
I was just going to say, I think you wrote the story about Sam Burgess' reaction to the Danny Walker selection and the defeat of the weekend, and I think he said that Burgess was bristly, I think was the term used. Josh, do you feel like he's feeling a little bit of pressure at the minute in terms of the squad and the direction that they're going and some of the performances.
Potentially, yeah. And just watching that game, it just didn't make sense because Danny Walker, as you say, he's one of the best nines in the competition. When he looked most dangerous in the halves was his running game. He made a break and he was just tackled short, but he only did that once. Other times he was just dropping off because he probably didn't want to overplay his hand because he's not used to playing there. Yeah. And then there was points where he was playing 9. I think Sam Powell had to come off for HIA. So then he had to go in 9. So then it was Ben Curry or Jody Crowther were playing in the halves. And it was just like mixing up the spine. It was almost complicated to watch. I actually thought it was Crowther that went into the halves. Then I was told after it was Ben Curry. So even us on the press bench weren't quite sure. It was just complicated to watch. And really, you don't want to change all that during a game, do you? You just need now for the 10 weeks that George Williams is out, get a partner, whether it be Ali Leyland, and just say, like they've got 10 weeks to gel now. You don't want to be chopping and changing it during a game when you're behind as well.
We've seen it over and over again. Teams that don't settle on the spine struggle. Huddersfield did the same last year, didn't they, with Ian Watson? Jake Connor was in and out of the team. They moved Lola here between half-back and full-back. And there's loads of examples of this. You have to settle on your spine. Now, losing George Williams is an enormous blow. But it's not. He hasn't felt settled on the spine all year, has he? Before Sneed came in.
This is why you have a squad, though, isn't it?
For sure.
You go into pre-season thinking, well, if George Williams is out, we have got X or Y as that half-back replacement, and they will train to step into them shoes.
Which you would have thought would have been Stephen Ratchford or Leyland, but to me, it almost says that Ratchford's not going to get a look in for the rest of the year. If this isn't a chance for him to get in with the experience he has. Yeah, I think, he's played a couple of games this year and he's played in the centres, but if he's not getting in now, when will he this year? I think almost the end for him there.
I think it's simple with Warrington. Try and recall when they've played well this season. They won a couple of games before Vegas, but they were average.
Yeah, weren't the best.
They were rubbish in Vegas. They then lost at home to Wakefield, where they were really poor. They did pick up a few wins on the bounce against Leeds and Saints, but that Saints when they got in the league, they were...
it was at 14-12.
It were back against the walls. It was a very spirited, resolute performance. You could say they played well to a degree. Leeds, I didn't think they played well. I thought they were quite fortunate to win. They played quite well against Saints in the Challenge Cup, didn't they?
Yes.
Beyond that, I'm struggling to think when I've been really impressed with Warrington this year.
You talked there about chopping and changing of players, and particularly in the halves, which brings me to the next subject, which is the Jonny Lomax situation at St Helens. I mean, the simple question is, what's going on there? Now, who wants to pick up that hospital pass and run with that one?
Well, for me, it's simple. Jonny Lomax hasn't played well this season and has been dropped. I think Paul Wellens has made an incredibly brave call. I didn't call it out last week because he said that Lomax had rolled his ankle, which is why he didn't play. I think he could have played if they wanted him to play. And he's going with Whitby, who's probably the future of the club in terms of the halves. I think Johnny's under contract for another year. But they're running with him at the minute. And I applaud Paul Wellens for doing it because it was a brave call. We spoke a lot on the show about how under pressure he is.
Yep.
So taking your captain out of the team and throwing in a rookie half.
The man who's done so much for you in terms of helping build that dynasty that they had. It's a massive call.
Don't forget as well, there's been a lot of questioning over Paul Wellens because he played with Jonny Lomax and there's been, he's friends with too many of the group. That's one of the various accusations thrown at him. Well, he's shown he's willing to make those calls.
I don't think though you can leave him out for that long. I don't think you could, because he's your captain, the influence he might have. I think their next problem will be dropping someone else.
Well, let's
Tristan
be right.
Saylor. I think Tristan Saylor will get dropped next. Put Jack Wells back at fullback and Whitby and Lomax in the halves. I think that's the next step.
Saylor's not a half, is he?
No,
he's not a half. He can't defend. His defense is awful.
And then at fullback on Good Friday, he just looked soft. He didn't want to return the ball. He was finding his wingers, and his wingers were, even with no momentum in them, he was finding the pass, finding his wingers for them to return it. The one time he did return it, he lost it. And obviously Abbas Miski scored the try at the end.
And listen, look, yardage is important in fullbacks nowadays. There's no denying that. You look at Lockie Miller's a good example where his kick returns. I mean, he's dynamite, isn't he? But he's not the most fluent in coming into a line and picking the pass out in the 3v2s and stuff. Every fullback can be different, and Saylor's undoubted strength is his speed and his ability just to get round a man. However, he's not bringing enough to the party at the minute. Look, it's early. We all remember how Jay Field's start went, and look where he is now. It's not time to write him off yet. However, he was really poor on Friday, I thought, against Wigan. Really poor. And he's only 2 good performances, if we're honest and brutal about this right now, were against that Salford team in round 1, which was an academy team or a reserve grade team, and against Castleford, who were where they are in the league. So, he's got a lot of people to prove wrong at the minute.
Yeah, the problem at Saints now is 4 players who want to start 3 positions. Someone's going to get dropped. It was Lomax now, but it might not be Lomax long term.
Your issue is if you take Saylor out, you lose that speed, because Wellesby, he's not a couch potato, but he's not rapid, is he? Whitby, again, not dynamite speed, and Jonny Lomax certainly isn't. So I think they have got an issue there of getting the balance right. They need to get Saylor playing well. That's what they need to do, but he's not played well for a while now. 2
ways I could go from this. I'm trying to keep my segues flowing nicely.
They've been nice and smooth so far.
I'm going to stay with Saints and we'll go with Alex Walmsley and talk about the statement that he came out with in the last week. It was after we'd recorded last week's podcast, in terms of edging closer to this players' union, which to me always seems like some sort of mythical creature that we're chasing, because it's always been, we'll get one down the line, it's coming, and it never happens. The players can never seem to get together. There doesn't seem to be the desire for it, the support for it. There's always a core collection of senior guys talking it up, but it never goes beyond that. Walmsley suggesting, finally, we're getting closer to it. First off, how important is it that we get one? And second, do we actually think it's going to happen? Josh, will come to you first. How important is it that we actually see a players' union form? Because you look at what's happened at Salford. You look at what happened with franchise talk. Let's talk about the NRL and the investment to come and what could happen down the line. The players need a voice and they need a say in the game, and they don't have that at the minute. So how important is it we actually see it come to fruition?
Yeah, important. It's topical at the minute, as you say, because of the Salford situation and players having to play through this. The chaos that's going on there. Alex Walmsley said that there is an appetite for it. So, and he said he's hopeful that change is coming. And hopefully it does, because players ultimately are one of the biggest stakeholders, if not the biggest stakeholders in the game. They're the ones putting their bodies on the line every week. They should have a say in the sport. At the minute, they're having probably the smallest, if any, say at all on the sport. I think the players deserve to have a say in the sport, like they do successfully in other sports as well, like you say, the NRL and football. We need it in Rugby League, in Super League, yeah. Oh, well, across all the divisions in Rugby League in the Northern Hemisphere.
The reason the union's never really happened is because, and I'm putting it on the players a little bit, as a general group, they only want a players' union when something's going on, like Salford, and then it's forgotten about. So it comes and goes. The good thing now is you've got Alex Walmsley, Ryan Briley, a few others in there are really pushing to make this a permanent thing. So I think it will happen, and the main benefit is the fact that you just get their perspective on things, which I don't think we get enough of in the sport, on things that we might not always think about, rule changes and disciplinary, and so it would be a good step forward. I hope it happens, and I think in Alex Walmsley you've got the perfect person driving it, because he's a very, very well respected figure within the game. I think within the players and within the higher ups.
And with Ryan Briley as well, we've seen really emerge as a leader. Yeah. Obviously, he's got that captaincy now at Salford, but we've seen him emerge as a leader off the field in the last 18 months, probably a couple of years, haven't we?
He's got a media profile as well, hasn't he? He's on Sky and BBC quite a lot. So I think it's good having someone. You need recognition, and I think you've got 2 guys there that have got that. So I hope it comes off. I think it will.
Keeping things moving on this podcast as we just rattle through many things that have been happening in the world of Rugby League this week. I said there was a couple of directions I could have gone in. The other one was we were talking about speed. We were talking about pacey wingers and things, and that's Wigan signing Christian Wade, which just came out of nowhere You know, some people suggesting last week I saw that they didn't really know much about him. Clearly, they don't watch a lot of rugby union, which I don't myself, but, you know, I'm fully aware of Christian Wade as a player, and he had that attempt to break through in the NRL, which is NFL, which is so incredibly difficult, trying to pick up that sport, and came really close. Scored a wonder of a touchdown, I think, in his first ever game. Goes to Wigan on this short-term deal till the end of the season. Joins. It's going to be next month now once the Rugby Union Premiership season's finished. What do we make of this one? Why has this one come about? What have Wigan seen in him? Is it a case of he don't count on the cap? It's a free hit? Trying each other out? They try him out, he tries them out?
Why not? Would be my reply to you. Why not? You know, we've got the dispensation for new talent pool, so he costs nothing to Wigan all year. They obviously, I think the timing's worked out nicely for Wigan in that Abbas Miski's having issues with his knee, isn't he?
Yeah.
He's finding it hard to get on the field, and he's going to find it hard to play week in, week out. So I think they'll have to manage how many games he plays and when he plays. With that in mind, they are a little short on the wing. They've got Jacob Douglas out there, and Zach Eckersley can play there, but obviously Adam Kieran's been out for a long time, and you know, Jay Fields had issues with his hamstring again, and so they're a bit light in the outside backs without that extra winger, especially with Abbas Miski having the persisting problem. You bring Christian Wade in, who clearly he's an athlete, isn't he?
Yeah.
There's no question in his athletic ability.
Yeah.
So yes, there'll be some questions over his rugby league ability, but I think the fact that he's tried NFL was actually really enticing to Wigan because it shows a willingness to try his hand at something else.
And that's a complicated game to learn.
Absolutely.
You know, because the playbook's massive and everything that goes on there.
Yeah,
they will simplify it for him at Wigan hugely.
Well, it's probably the easiest position to transition, isn't it? The wing, I think, from rugby union to rugby league.
Yes.
Sometimes, forwards, your playmakers, that would be difficult. Your wing is probably the easiest transition. I think he's 12, 11 tries behind Chris Ashton's all-time try scoring record. It's risk-free, isn't it? It's risk-free for both. He fancies it. As you say, it counts nothing on the cap. It's risk-free for Wigan, and we'll see what happens. Obviously, he joins at the end of the Premiership season, June. I think the 4th, in the playoffs, so it could be extended by a couple of weeks. But I think the final's the middle of June, so towards the end of June will be when he can make the switch across.
And you've got to look at Wigan have had their eye on that outside back position for a little while now. There was obviously whispers about Dion Cross and potential interest there, but the cap's the issue there. So this was a way around it.
Yeah.
I think it makes complete sense for you. I think it's smart business. And it'll be exciting to see how he gets on.
Really exciting.
If he stays next year, it's then just 50%, isn't it?
It's only 50%.
So again, it works out well.
You mentioned it, that every signing has risk value, doesn't it? It's hard to see where the risk is in this for Wigan. If he's not good enough, he just doesn't play. Costs them in the back pocket, but Wigan, as we know, aren't short of money. So that's the only real risk for them.
It's a good publicity. They haven't signed him for the publicity, but the publicity that comes with it.
Yeah, it's been good over the weekend.
About it.
Yeah, it was on I think it was on TNT coverage ahead of a Rugby Union game on the weekend.
Yeah, he's a massive name. He's a massive name in world rugby.
Yeah.
Okay. Moving on to another potential signing and a player who is going to be departing. Jared Warrior-Hargreaves announced last week as well, it was after the pod, that he's retiring now, hanging up his boots, as they say, at the end of the season. Remarkable career in Australia. Come over here being a big hit with the Hull Kingston Rovers players, all the staff and the fans. You've spent some time with him. You spent some time with him in Amsterdam, actually, in pre-season as well. Yeah. A champion bloke. Anytime you get to speak to him, he's making a significant impact at Rovers for his personality as well as on the field as well. Scored a acrobatic derby try, let's say, but I think this is a decision that just makes sense for all parties, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Really?
Look, the carry's not there, is it? That blockbusting, show-stopping carry that a lot of people have felt the wrath of over the years. However, he's made up for that with the amount of work he's getting through.
Yeah.
The number of carries he's making.
The minutes he's
The
playing
minutes
as well.
he's playing, the number of tackles he's making. Defensively, he's still outstanding. When Hull FC are in trouble, they've brought him back on the field earlier.
Yeah. I mean, I'm calling
Sorry,
the NFL, the
Did I say-
NRL.
did I-
You're making the big
Hull
mistake
FC
of FC and KR.
Sorry. They bring him back on early. When they were struggling against Hull FC, they brought him back on early, is what I was trying to say. So he's been a lot better than people give him credit for. But it is the right decision.
Just on the credit, just quickly, do you know what I think a lot of people, why they're not giving, I think everyone thought he was just going to come over and start fights every week and bash people up.
That was the thought, wasn't it? And then get banned.
And then get banned.
But now he's not doing that. People are like, oh.
Yeah, exactly.
Questioning it.
It's
Like, well,
not
what?
as exciting, but
Yeah,
ultimately,
we want to play
the
him,
guy's part of one of the best. You can make whatever argument you want, but defensive units in the competition, he's a massive part of that.
Yeah, 100%. He's played far better than people think if you actually watched him closely. But I think opposition fans probably don't notice him because you notice who's troubling you in attack, don't you?
Yeah.
And he's not doing that. That the attacking element of his game is not what it was. But yeah, he's been great and just you said got to spend some time with him in Amsterdam and he's just a really, really good human being. And you can't underestimate
a calm bloke,
that.
isn't he? Elliot Manchella said that he was almost surprised at his calming influence. He said the same about Mickey Mack. Said that just they bring that sort of calmness. So while everyone else might be a bit panicked during some certain times in a game, them two can bring
That isn't
calmness.
what Elliot Manchella said to me about Mickey Mack. I can't repeat what he said about Mickey McIlaurin to me after the Challenge Cup derby.
Actually, he didn't actually name Mickey Mack. You're right. He did. He said the off-season recruits that with experience
he was singing.
in them.
Let me just say, he was absolutely singing Mickey McIlaurin's praises, but I can't tell you what he told me.
One of these days we'll do an X-rated version of the show. And then just moving on, his teammate Mikey Lewis came out this week, was talking about his NRL ambition, which, I don't think, Hull Kingston Rovers fans should be panicking just yet. I don't think he's got any burning desire to get out the club. He's just saying he wants to test himself in the NRL, and who can blame him for that, whether that's in a couple of years or whenever that is. But you can see that, can't you? I think he's the sort of character and style of player that would fit in well in the NRL.
Absolutely. Look, I don't think Mikey Lewis will see out his contract at KR, which runs to 2028. Yeah. I think he'll be in the NRL before then. He won't go this year, though. Maybe after the World Cup, possibly. You got a lot of things you got to factor when you're moving. He's just had a child, as we all know.
Yep.
Is he going to want to go? Look, Rovers don't need to worry about it on that front. It's no surprise to know that he wants to go. He's a rugby nut, isn't he?
He said it was a childhood dream, and you can't blame him, can you?
Absolutely. I think he will go at some point. But I think that's to England's gain.
Yeah.
Not to Hull KR's gain, obviously. He's one of those players who's irreplaceable, isn't he? And will create them an even bigger issue because they can have him as a homegrown marquee. And we talk about salary cap tightness. Losing Mike is horrendous for them. But look, they don't need to worry about that anytime soon. Yes.
But it was telling that he said it. And just finally wrapping up, anything else on the transfer front? I know when we were on our way to the studio, you were making some calls this morning. It's relatively quiet at the minute. Anything?
It's a bit of a frustrating time at the minute because there isn't a lot of movements. And it's not unusual. You tend to see in recruitment cycles, a lot of deals get done early, which there has been. Liam Byrne to Warrington, Hull FC have made a couple, and Hull KR have made a couple too. Obviously, more come early. Tom and Moan. Then it stops because the Australian market hasn't quite picked up yet.
Yeah.
And the English market's not really thriving anyway, so it's a little quiet. Magic's next week. A lot of the Aussie agents come over, probably start moving then. And then on just other stuff, there isn't a great deal. Big meeting next week, which will help on recruitment as well. The regulatory meeting where the quota dispensations that were discussed for last year will be discussed next week about potentially coming in for next year. That could have really big ramifications for clubs in terms of what they do for 2026. So give it a week, and I think the recruitment market will start speeding up.
Yeah, we'll have more on those ramifications of that meeting, both on our website, alloutrugbyleague.co.uk, and on this podcast in weeks to come. That's it from me and from Josh, and I'll let Matt say his own goodbyes, but thanks for being with us.
Yeah, enjoy your week, and above all else, enjoy your rugby league. Take care.